There's a grain that makes wheat look primitive. It grows from seed to harvest in 30 days. Not 90 days like corn, not 120 days like wheat. 30 days. Planted in June, harvested in July. Plant again in July, harvest in August. 3 crops per season where other grains give you 1. This grain contains more iron than spinach, more calcium than milk, more protein than rice. A nutritional profile so complete that populations have survived on it alone for 3,000 years. This grain survives drought that kills corn. It thrives in waterlogged soil that rots wheat. It produces in heat that stunts barley. It grows in poor soil that starves other crops. This grain is so small that 150 seeds equal the weight of a single wheat kernel. So small that 1 handful plants an acre. So small that ancient farmers called it the grain that feeds you from dust. This grain built one of Africa's oldest civilizations. Ethiopia rose on its cultivation. Empires expanded on its nutrition. Armies marched on bread made from this grain when European soldiers ate hardtack that broke their teeth. And Ethiopia made it illegal to export. Not the processed flour, not the finished bread, the seeds themselves. For nearly a decade, the Ethiopian government banned the export of this grain's seeds. They kept the genetics inside their borders. They guarded it like a strategic resource. Because it is a strategic resource. The global grain industry sells $350 billion annually. Wheat, corn, rice, and soy dominate this market. Seed companies control the genetics. Farmers buy new seed every season. The system depends on grains that require inputs, that demand fertilizer, that need the products the industry sells. This grain needs nothing. It grows on neglect. It produces without fertilizer. It returns year after year from seed you save yourself. The grain industry cannot profit from a crop that makes farmers independent. So they ensure you never learn about the grain that Africa kept secret for 3,000 years. This grain is teff, Eragrostis teff, the tiny seed that built Ethiopia. Today we are opening the file on the 30-day grain that outperforms everything in American fields, the iron-rich superfood that survived a government export ban, the ancient crop that modern agriculture wants you to never discover, and the industry that profits from your dependence on inferior grains. If this matters to you, subscribe and hit the bell. The file is open. In 1996, a food scientist named Wayne Carlson traveled to Ethiopia on a mission that would change American grain forever. Carlson was not a typical researcher. He had spent years studying ancient grains that modern agriculture had abandoned. He believed that industrial farming had optimized for the wrong traits, selecting for yield and shipping durability while sacrificing nutrition and resilience. Ethiopia drew him because of teff. Carlson had read the nutritional analyses. He had studied the growing requirements. He understood that teff represented something rare, a grain that excelled in nutrition while also excelling in resilience. Most crops trade one for the other. Teff had both. What he found in Ethiopia exceeded his expectations. The grain grew everywhere. Farmers cultivated it on slopes too steep for other crops. They grew it in valley bottoms that flooded annually. They harvested it in regions where drought killed maize and sorghum. The same grain thrived across conditions that would require different crops anywhere else. The bread made from teff, called injera, was the foundation of Ethiopian cuisine. Every meal included it. Every household made it. The sour, spongy flatbread provided nutrition that kept populations healthy, despite poverty that would cause malnutrition elsewhere. Carlson collected seeds. He brought them back to Idaho. He began the work of adapting teff to American conditions. The adaptation was almost unnecessary. Teff grew in Idaho as well as it grew in Ethiopia. The grain did not require coddling. It did not demand special treatment. It simply grew, as it had grown in Africa for 3,000 years. Carlson founded a company to produce American teff. He developed growing protocols. He created markets among health-conscious consumers who discovered that teff offered nutrition that other grains could not match. Then Ethiopia noticed what was leaving their borders. In 2006, the Ethiopian government banned teff seed exports. They had watched quinoa transform from an Andean staple into a global commodity that priced Bolivian farmers out of their own food supply. They feared the same fate for teff. The ban remained in place until 2015. For nearly a decade, no teff seeds legally left Ethiopia. The government protected their heritage crop from the global commodity system that had extracted value from traditional foods worldwide. The ban revealed something important. A government does not restrict exports of worthless commodities. Ethiopia banned teff exports because teff is genuinely valuable, so valuable that losing control of its genetics represented a national security concern. The ban has lifted, but teff remains almost unknown in America. The grain that Ethiopia guarded as a strategic asset sits in health food stores at premium prices, while Americans eat nutritionally inferior wheat and corn. The nutritional profile of teff embarrasses modern grains. Start with iron. Teff contains between 7 and 33 milligrams of iron per 100 grams, depending on variety. Spinach, the vegetable famous for iron content, contains only 2.7 milligrams per 100 grams. Teff contains up to 12 times more iron than spinach. Iron deficiency affects over 2 billion people. A grain that provides iron in every meal prevents deficiency without supplements. Ethiopian populations consuming teff daily show iron status that puzzles researchers. The calcium content rivals dairy at approximately 180 milligrams per 100 grams. A population without access to dairy can build strong bones on teff. The protein content ranges from 11 to 15% with high levels of lysine, an essential amino acid that most grains lack. The fiber content exceeds most grains at approximately 8 grams per 100 grams. Teff is naturally gluten-free. This makes it safe for celiac disease and beneficial for gluten sensitivity. Research published in the Journal of Food, Science, and Technology documented teff's complete amino acid profile. The study concluded that teff protein quality approaches the quality of egg protein. A 2018 study in the journal Nutrients found that traditional Ethiopian diets centered on teff provided adequate nutrition for all life stages, including pregnancy and childhood growth. The growing characteristics of teff challenge everything modern agriculture believes about grain production. Teff matures in 30 to 55 days, depending on variety and conditions. Compare this to wheat at 120 days, corn at 90 to 100 days, or rice at 120 to 150 days. The short growing season allows multiple crops per year in warm climates. Ethiopian farmers routinely harvest 2 or 3 teff crops annually from the same field. American farmers growing teff in southern states have achieved the same multiple harvests. The drought tolerance stems from teff's fibrous root system. The roots spread widely and exploit moisture throughout the soil profile. When surface moisture disappears, teff roots access deeper reserves that shallow-rooted crops cannot reach. Research at Wageningen University in the Netherlands documented teff's water use efficiency. The study found that teff produces more grain per unit of water consumed than wheat, barley, or maize. In water-limited environments, teff outproduces grains that yield more under irrigation. The waterlogging tolerance seems contradictory, but reflects teff's adaptability. When Ethiopian fields flood during monsoon season, teff survives conditions that rot other cereals. The same grain that tolerates drought tolerates flooding. The adaptability is nearly unique among cereal crops. The soil requirements are minimal. Teff grows in acidic soils that stunt wheat. It produces in depleted soils that require heavy fertilization for other crops. It yields adequately in conditions that would be considered unsuitable for grain production. The fertilizer requirements approach zero for subsistence production. Ethiopian farmers have grown teff for millennia without synthetic inputs. The grain produces reasonable yields on nothing more than what the soil naturally provides. This independence terrifies the agricultural input industry. Modern grain farming depends on purchased seeds, purchased fertilizers, purchased pesticides, and purchased equipment. Each input represents profit for someone other than the farmer. The system extracts value at every stage. Teff requires almost nothing. It can be broadcast by hand. It can grow without fertilizer. It produces seed that farmers save and replant indefinitely. The grain makes farmers independent of the system that profits from their dependence. The cultivation of teff in American gardens is remarkably simple. Obtain seed from specialty grain suppliers or health food stores. Many teff seeds sold for cooking remain viable and will germinate. Test germination by sprouting a small sample before planting larger areas. Plant after last frost when soil temperatures exceed 60 degrees Fahrenheit. Teff is a warm season crop that thrives in conditions similar to corn or sorghum. Prepare a seed bed by loosening soil and removing weeds. Teff seeds are tiny and cannot emerge through crusted soil or compete with established weeds. A clean, fine seed bed is essential for good germination. Broadcast seed at a rate of approximately 4 to 8 pounds per acre, or approximately 1/4 teaspoon per square foot for garden plots. The seeds are almost impossibly small. Mix with sand to achieve even distribution. Do not bury the seeds. Teff requires light for germination. Press seeds into the soil surface with a roller or by walking across the planted area. The seeds should contact soil but remain visible. Water gently to avoid washing seeds into clumps. Keep soil moist until germination occurs in 3 to 7 days. After establishment, teff requires minimal water. The plants grow 12 to 30 inches tall depending on variety and conditions. They resemble fine ornamental grass. The seed heads develop at the top of slender stems and ripen over approximately 2 weeks. Harvest. When seed heads mature to tan or reddish brown and seeds shatter easily when rubbed. Cut the entire plant and dry on tarps. Thresh by beating dried plants to release seeds. Winnow to separate seeds from chaff. The entire process from planting to harvested grain requires 30 to 55 days. A garden planted in early June provides grain before August. A second planting immediately after harvest provides a second crop before frost. Small-scale teff production is entirely feasible for home gardeners. A plot measuring 10 feet by 10 feet produces approximately 2 to 4 pounds of grain, enough for dozens of loaves of injera, or for blending with other flours throughout the year. The economics of teff reveal the premium that ignorance creates. Retail teff flour sells for $6 to $12 per pound in American health food stores. Whole teff grain sells for $8 to $15 per pound. These prices exceed wheat flour by a factor of 10 or more. The premium does not reflect production costs. Teff is not expensive to grow. Ethiopian farmers produce it at costs comparable to other grains. The processing requirements are minimal. The premium reflects scarcity created by ignorance. Few American farmers grow teff. Few American consumers know to demand it. The small market supports premium pricing that would collapse if production scaled. An American farmer growing teff on 5 acres produces approximately 5,000 pounds of grain. At wholesale prices of $4 to $6 per pound, this represents $20,000 to $30,000 of gross revenue per crop. 2 crops per season doubles this figure. Compare this to wheat at approximately $200 per acre gross revenue. Teff generates 10 to 20 times more revenue per acre than commodity wheat. The market exists. Health food stores cannot keep teff in stock. Online retailers sell out regularly. Gluten-free bakeries seek suppliers and accept premium prices. The farmers who discover teff first will capture this market. The farmers who wait for mainstream adoption will compete in a crowded market with compressed margins. First mover advantage rarely appears so clearly in agriculture. The crop is proven. The market is established. The only barrier is the knowledge that reaches farmers before their competitors discover the opportunity. The injera bread that built Ethiopian civilization demonstrates teff's culinary potential. Injera is a sourdough flatbread fermented for 2 to 3 days before cooking. The fermentation develops a tangy flavor and creates the spongy texture that characterizes the bread. The process is simple. Mix teff flour with water to create a thin batter. Add a small amount of previously fermented batter as starter, or allow wild fermentation to begin spontaneously. Cover and leave at room temperature. After 2 to 3 days, the batter develops bubbles and a sour aroma. The fermentation is complete. Heat a nonstick skillet or traditional clay plate. Pour batter in a thin spiral from the outside edge to the center. Cover and cook until the surface is dry and covered with characteristic holes. Do not flip. The bread cooks entirely from bottom heat. Remove when the bottom releases easily and the top is set. The resulting bread is spongy, slightly sour, and remarkably nutritious. The fermentation increases bioavailability of minerals, including iron and calcium. Traditional preparation enhances the already exceptional nutritional profile. Injera serves as both food and utensil. Ethiopians tear pieces of injera and use them to scoop stews and vegetables. The bread absorbs flavors while providing nutrition. The meal is eaten with hands, the bread connecting diners to food directly. Beyond injera, teff flour works in porridge, pancakes, baked goods, and as a thickener for soups and stews. The mild, slightly nutty flavor complements both sweet and savory applications. The grain that Ethiopia protected is also the grain that Ethiopia perfected. 3,000 years of culinary development created dishes that maximize both nutrition and pleasure. The suppression of teff knowledge in America reflects patterns repeated across alternative crops. Agricultural extension services do not teach teff cultivation. University research programs do not prioritize teff breeding. Seed companies do not stock teff varieties. The infrastructure that supports commodity grain production does not exist for grains that threaten commodity dominance. The grain industry profits from farmer dependence on seeds, fertilizers, and pesticides. Teff undermines each profit center. Teff seeds can be saved and replanted indefinitely. The grain industry loses the annual seed sales that provide recurring revenue. Teff requires minimal fertilizer. The industry loses input sales that represent the largest agricultural expense. Teff resists most pests and diseases without intervention. The industry loses pesticide sales that generate billions annually. A grain that farmers grow independently represents grain the industry cannot monetize. The silence surrounding teff is not conspiracy. It is simply economics. Nobody profits from teaching you to grow teff. Everybody profits from teaching you to buy wheat. The information vacuum is intentional. It serves interests that depend on your continued ignorance of what agriculture could provide. The choice between dependency and independence extends beyond any single grain. Modern agriculture teaches farmers and gardeners to purchase inputs. Buy seeds, buy fertilizers, buy pesticides, buy solutions to problems created by the system that sells solutions. Ancient agriculture taught farmers to observe and adapt, save seeds that perform well, build soil through rotation and organic matter, select crops that resist pests without intervention, create systems that sustain themselves. Teff comes from the ancient tradition. It expects nothing, it demands nothing. It produces without purchased inputs. It feeds populations that have nothing to purchase. This independence is precisely why modern agriculture ignores teff. Independent farmers are not customers. They are competitors. Every farmer who grows teff instead of buying wheat represents market share lost. Every gardener who harvests their own grain represents a consumer who stops consuming. The system requires your dependency. Teff offers escape from that dependency. 30 days from seed to grain, 3 crops per season, more iron than spinach, seeds saved and replanted forever. Africa kept this grain secret for 3,000 years, not because they were primitive, because they understood its value. The secret is out. The seeds are available. The knowledge is yours. What you do with it is your choice. If this video helped you see what 30 days can produce, subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss what we uncover next.